So during the zombie apocalypse, one of the most important things that you have to do is to be able to identify and secure for yourself the best safe house for the purposes that you need it for. Simply put, it's almost impossible to survive the zombie apocalypse if you do not have a proper safe house. And so for this video, we'll be going through the different types of safe houses or bases that you may find during the zombie apocalypse. And we'll give each of them a rating or a score based on several criteria. First, the rarity of the safe house. Next, how easy it is to defend yourself in this safe house. How easy it is to escape from this safe house. And then whether the safe house is surrounded by resources or by itself contains many resources. Also, the possibility of expanding the safe house into a bigger area or a base, depending, let's say for example, more survivors join you. And also, how sustainable is it to stay in this safe house? And lastly, any other dangers or special features of the safe house which might make a difference. So naturally, the value of the safe house changes based on what you actually need it for. For example, if you're just staying for one night because this is part of the long journey to a further destination, you don't really need something elaborate or able to defend well from. You just need somewhere quiet to hide away from the zombies and quickly move away the next day. The size of the party also makes a difference because if you have a bigger party, naturally you need a bigger safe house, and also the style of the survivors makes a difference. For example, are you the type of survivors that just want to look for rescue, wait for the helicopters to come and pick you up? Or are you looking to just hide away, away from the zombies, avoid conflict, avoid combat? Or are you well equipped and able to take on any enemy that comes, whether it's zombies or other survivors or malicious actors? And so we'll be comparing and rating the safe houses and bases as follows. Firstly, the apartments and flats, which are very common in cities. Next, office buildings, also very common in cities. Then suburban homes or countryside homes. Next, train stations or shelters. Then industrial buildings or even factories. Number 6, shopping malls. And number 7, supermarkets, which can be in or outside of shopping malls. Number 8, rural farmhouses. And number 9, similar to rural farmhouses, actually rural camps where people go for camping and away from civilization. Number 9, away from land at sea, which are like aircraft carriers or even cruisers. Number 10, amusement parks. And number 11, military bases. So before we start today's video, please support the channel by subscribing. I am going to try to use some AI tools this video to prepare some infographics or pictures. But the script and all this is not AI. Okay, I type out everything myself. I write the script myself. I come up with the concept and idea myself. I do not use AI for the scripts. But I think because I want to push out more content, I want to produce more videos, it's very difficult for me to constantly try to edit the videos myself, do so much animation, because I'm really not that talented at video editing or animating, and so I'll be using some AI tools. So please support the channel. Of course, if the channel grows more, grows bigger, maybe we can expand more and I may be able to engage an editor to help me with this. So thanks to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. Your support really means a lot to me, and I hope to be able to continue producing more content for you guys, maybe not just on this zombie apocalypse, but also other topics or other logical thinking or processes or life lessons to learn from. So I'll give my top pick at the end of the video, so do stick around for that. And I'll try to speed things up and keep this video as short as possible, because I actually wrote a script originally to cover a lot of these bases and safe houses, and it ended up looking like an hour-long script. So I'm just going to go through each of these safe houses quickly and briefly. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments or suggestions or feedback, do leave them in the comments down below and let me know what is your most preferred safe house in the event of a zombie apocalypse. So the first safe house that we'll be talking about is the suburban homes, which I will give a rating of 7 out of 10. To me, suburban homes will rank generally quite high because they are not really very uncommon, especially if once you're out of the city, it's quite common to find these places, and it's generally decent for defense because of the layout of the houses, especially for buildings which are isolated but have 2 or 3 floors. The second or third floors are actually very good for defending the house. You can also set the first floor to have many traps or blockage or barriers to impede zombies from entering the house, and then you can also escape from the level 2 into maybe other houses or other areas to get away from the threat. The cons of suburban home is that there are many doors and many windows. So while these do serve as excellent areas for you to escape from, there are also excellent areas for zombies to gain access to your house from. And so you would most likely have to plan properly before you convert this suburban home into a shelter. You have to plan which windows and doors you should be boarding up and ensuring no no zombie can get through, and which ones will be used for your emergency escape. The issue I have with suburban homes, which keeps them at 7, is that they are very poor for expansion. Unless you're a very good engineer or good at construction, it's very difficult for you to expand this suburban home, especially in a zombie apocalypse. Most likely you'll be just trying to take over and clear out the other suburban homes around you and try to build a perimeter and continually expand that perimeter. The other issue is that suburban homes generally have poor resources. I mean, the homes itself would have many stocked up food or canned food, but unless you're able to do farming in the land around you, it's not going to have a lot of resources around. Generally, you may have to go further away for supermarkets to try to loot for leftover supplies. Next, office buildings. To me, generally, I'm not really a fan of this. I'll probably give it a 5 out of 10. And this is because office buildings, while they are common and easy to find, especially in the cities, these are places which are densely populated. That also means there will be either other human survivors fighting you for the same place to stay, or there will be many zombies who have been converted recently and they're just trying to find their next meal. Pros of this place is that there's going to be a lot of resources around. There are supermarkets, convenience stores nearby that would definitely have leftover food or leftover stores in their back rooms. But office layouts are generally not meant for silence or privacy. They are quite open concept and they are not really noise insulating. And so your footsteps will definitely be heard by the zombie across the building. If the zombie is chasing you, you probably have very, very little way of running away unless it's changing floors or turning into tight corners. You can see one side of the office from the other side of the office, and so it's very difficult to escape from zombies in that sense. The other issue with escaping is that if you are on, for example, level 3 or level 10, I think it's going to be difficult for you to escape away using stairs again, unless there are some hidden stairs that you are aware of that the zombies may not be able to find. And also, given how dense the buildings and the whole layout of the cities are, by the time you reach the ground floor, you'll probably be met with another horde of zombies waiting for you. So one possible modification that may elevate office buildings up to the next level would be definitely having sky bridges. If you are able to construct or build sky bridges between buildings, or if there are sky bridges that exist already pre-existing between the buildings, these of course may increase the probability of zombies finding you or accessing where you are from another building, but they also serve as a good escape to another building. Next, shopping malls. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Not a big fan, because even though it's high in resources for sure, with plenty of supplies and plenty of stores, leftover loot, it is going to be a nightmare for you to defend. So unless you have a big party, it's going to be impossible for you to secure the entire shopping mall by yourself. Most likely, you'll be securing just a shop. Then again, any expansion will be difficult because you're just going to be expanding into another shop. But unless you're picking a corner shop, you have to defend from almost every side when you're trying to clear out. There is, however, a high chance of escape because there's so many exits for shopping malls at level 1, basement, or even level 2 for some shopping malls. But this also means more access points for zombies or other survivors to enter. Also, it is very likely that during the early stage of the zombie apocalypse, the shopping mall may already be looted or raided by survivors or people who are panicking. And so not only will you have lesser supplies available for you, many of these shopping mall items like supplies or goods, which will lead to a lot of tripping hazards for you, which causes a problem when you're trying to escape from zombies. I'm sure most of you will also know that shopping malls aren't really designed for silence or quiet, nor do they have noise insulation. Most likely, when you're running from one part of the shopping mall to another part, the sound will echo all over the place, and zombies all around the shopping mall will definitely know where you are. So in my view, it's best for you to treat the shopping mall as a place to temporarily get some supplies, maybe stay a night at one corner or in the rooftop or in the basement, and then move on for the next day. Next, supermarkets. I'm going to put it about the same as shopping mall, maybe a bit better at like 5 out of 10, because while it has the similar benefits like having the supplies and the stores like the shopping mall, but also same problems with tripping hazard and probably already looted. But I do think that a supermarket will be easier to defend generally because it's easier to build barricades or funnel zombies a certain way, although that does take a lot of effort and probably a stronger, bigger party to shift around some of those shelves. It does have a lot of back doors. As you know, supermarkets are usually stocked by people who push carts out from the back rooms, the storages, which are connected to the exterior in a less conspicuous area where all the supply trucks and the food trucks usually drop off the supplies. However, while the defense is slightly better than a shopping mall, the overall improvement for defending is actually still very low, because it's difficult for you to get any bird's eye view of any zombies coming in, and it's going to be very difficult for you to actually build proper barricades or hide from the zombies' pursuit unless you are some secret access, or you're able to create some traps to stop the zombies from accessing. It's also zero likelihood for you to expand this safe house. And similar to shopping malls, perhaps it's just better to treat it as like a stop to pick up supplies or resources and then move on. Next, schools or universities. I would actually rate this slightly better than shopping malls at about maybe 6 out of 10, because I think while they are more uncommon than supermarkets or shopping malls, the resources available in schools or in universities are actually surprisingly high. These places usually have to have a lot of backup supplies for the students' food or canteens. And if it's a university, they'll be in a university town where there's plenty of resources all around. Of course, you have to travel out, but there are more resources generally. It's also good because these places generally have a larger variety and supply of equipment, and this may range from gym equipment or to even chemical equipment or even vehicle manufacturing engineering equipment for you to use or to modify to defend yourself. However, the escape definitely needs proper planning because schools and universities have very large land areas. There are many access points and there are many exits. And also some schools also have underground sections which, while present good escape tunnels, you gotta make sure that zombies do not enter from there as well. The defense is also moderately decent because you are able to get bird's eye view generally across the schools or the universities, and there are also pretty sturdy gates for schools and universities. But I do think that expansion is pretty much impossible unless, for example, you're expanding from one building of the university to entire area. Then that of course depends on how capable your party is in using the equipment available in the school to expand and to build proper barricades to push out zombies. Next, apartment flats. This is actually something that I would prefer, but I don't think it's actually very good. Maybe also about a 6 for different reasons. So the main problem and also the main benefit of apartment flats is that they only have one access point, the one main door by which you enter and exit the house. And so while this reduces the chances of zombies surprising you or invading your shelter, it's also difficult for you to escape if a zombie enters or breaks down your main door. The resources are also generally decent, but it depends also on your neighbors, right? If your neighbors have looted everything and bring and escape with all the supplies, you're stuck with the leftovers. Most apartments are also either in the corner, which will be a cul-de-sac, or you may just be a corridor unit, by which you have to defend both sides when you're exiting the house actually. Expansion into other units may not always be good as well, because you are simply just conquering another house next door. This doesn't really add value to your defense because it's not as though having someone situated at the next unit may help you with your defense, generally. They are not going to be able to cover you unless they go through the same door, which is where the zombies will be anyway. It's also more likely that these apartment or flats, because of how densely populated they are, these will actually be hotspots for zombies as well. So unless you're able to secure a lot of resources or you're just stuck here, I wouldn't choose this as a safe house. But if you have no choice and you're able to survive for a while, why not? This may be a good staging area for you to plan your escape or to plan your route to a better safe house somewhere else. Next, train stations, that be it underground or overground, I will give them a generally maybe a 5 out of 10 maybe. But it depends. Because some countries use or designate train stations to be emergency shelters or bomb shelters or gathering places for people to go in the event of crisis. It also mean in this crisis of the zombie apocalypse, many people may have already run there and there may already be an outbreak there. However, there are some benefits to the train stations. Generally, the exits for train stations do have a lot of food options or even convenience stores, which would then be a good source of supplies and resources for you. However, whether it's really good or bad depends on whether you are using the above ground or the underground stations. For the underground stations, unless you are able to secure the entrances and exits to the train stations, for example, having those large gates or barriers that stop zombies from coming in, it's going to mean that you're going to have a lot of trouble securing the area. It's also poor defense if the zombies are entering from above ground because it's generally harder to defend when enemies are coming from above you. It's also difficult for you to expand into other stations unless you are able to clear out and secure the entire train routes, right? Which then would be a very good way for you to rebuild society, because if, for example, you're able to connect the different stations, you're able to clear out the different stations to have more survivors all around, That means there is an underground network for you to go while escaping a lot of zombies, but you can also house a lot of people and shelter them. But of course, this continually assumes that each and every station, has proper barricades, has proper blockages for the entrances and the exits. And you are able to continually clear out the zombies, not just from the stations, but from the tunnels as well. And lastly, however, the main problem that I foresee with underground stations is the issues with air quality and even potential flooding and even fires. Because if you're trapping everyone inside, the air quality is going to suffer. People may start to feel lightheaded because the lack of oxygen, especially if the ventilation systems are not working properly. And if there's flooding or if there's leakages or fires, if it's difficult for zombies to come in, it's going to be difficult for humans to get out as well. However, conversely, for the overground stations, it might actually be better, and I might actually give it a higher score, because generally above ground, you have a better chance because you can observe your surroundings. You can see zombies coming from a mile away, and it's easier for you to defend zombies running up the stairs, by kicking them down, for example, as compared to zombies coming from above. However, you still need good barricades and barriers to be built, because generally above ground stations are quite open. They are all literally open the moment anyone gets onto the track or onto the platform. It's as though it's free game. So you gotta make sure that you're able to funnel zombies away or to block other people from coming up to the station. The other problem also is that overground stations are quite exposed to the elements. So unless your party is small enough to be able to fit into, for example, the small rooms around or the small offices, you're going to have a problem with maintaining the head count. Conversely, however, it is easier for you to expand into other stations because you are able to walk on the overhead tracks, which generally I think wouldn't have as much zombies. Next, aircraft carriers or cruise ships. Honestly, for this, I will feel like it's a strong 7 or 8, and it's for a few reasons. First, it's a very popular trope in the movies that during the zombie apocalypse, the ultimate survivor camps or where the survivor's base is like on the ships, like a container ship that's far away from the shore, or like some sort of aircraft carrier that can house many people, like the remnants of the government is in this aircraft carrier. And this works because, zombies basically can't swim. And even if the zombies try to stack up like they did in World War Z, it's literally impossible for them to get to the ships, right? Based on how we've concluded, how the logical zombie virus will work, it will be almost impossible for zombies to learn how to swim. So aircraft carriers and cruise ships would generally have a good amount of resources. After all, before these ships even set sail, they will have made sure that they have sufficient supplies and resources to sustain the people on the ship for a long period of time. It's also possible for the ship to make regular stops around the world, at ports or along the shore. They can either, of course, dock at the port or take small boats to come out, to collect supplies and then go back. And the sustainability point is about half-half because, of course, a ship can last pretty long, assuming that you are able to maintain and upkeep the ship, like the engine or to get enough fuel. However, it's almost impossible to expand this shelter or this base because the ship by itself is definitely fixed, and you can't increase the size of a ship unless you acquire another ship, which would have been almost impossible anyway. And so definitely for the ship, while there will be a massive headcount available, the headcount will be fixed. And of course, this will lead to a lot of moral dilemmas where more survivors want to get on board, but we're like, no, we can't hold you, we don't have enough space, you guys, I'm sorry, and all that conflicts. It's also easier to defend because the ship can dictate for itself what are the entrances and the exits for the ship. Of course, people can jump off the ships, zombies can climb onto the ships, but then again, there's the defense of having the water that blocks the zombies out. However, one big problem is that this is not a common option for a lot of people because a lot of people are living in landlocked countries or landlocked states, and even if the ships are available, the likelihood of them having no zombies on board is going to be quite low. And if you think about it, the ship will require extremely strict and stringent quarantine measures or containment measures. Otherwise, a single zombie running amok would lead to the entire ship basically being infected. Next, amusement parks. So for amusement parks, I kind of put it in like a bit of a joke thing, but then as I thought about it, it kind of made sense for a few reasons. Firstly, amusement parks are huge, and they have a lot of stores and a lot of resources, and so basically they can host a lot of people. However, this also means that you need a big group to take over the amusement park and then subsequently to defend it. And so ideally, the amusement park would be a good option if you have a big group of survivors that are looking for a big place to shelter the community, to build a base and to defend it properly and secure it. And it's also easier to defend the amusement park because of how the amusement parks are laid out. Generally, they have very strong and clearly demarcated boundaries that are defended by large walls or large gates. And the access points are also properly gated. It's also not that hard to build a barricade at the access points to ensure that you are able to keep the zombies out. Most of the time, the buildings also have high vantage points for you to get a bird's eye view of the zombies that may be approaching. Also, there's a lot of back entrances within the amusement park itself. For example, the staff entrances and exits, or where the food supplies will come in and out for some of these restaurants. These could serve as very good, extra hiding places for humans, for survivors when, let's say, zombies are invading or it's time to escape from a horde. Now, the main problem is amusement parks will rate kind of low on the resources side because while they have some restaurants or like cafes and vending machines all around, these would run out pretty quickly. And most amusement parks are not situated near the cities or in densely populated areas, but instead are near like resorts or other hotels. So of course, you would have to venture out into these places to try to get food and supplies. But once again, as you enter into densely populated areas, it's always going to be a risk that there are many zombies there. In addition, expansion is almost impossible because the amusement park is pretty fixed. So unless, for example, the amusement park is built on like an island or there are adjoining amusement parks, it's almost impossible for you to expand into a bigger area or to increase the land size to fit more people. However, I do think there is a pretty good mid to end point of how a base or shelter should be for a survivor camp, because it checks a lot of the boxes that a big survivor camp would need. Like, for example, having a lot of space for people to stay, having proper segregation for privacy reasons and also for security. You're also able to create like quarantine areas for newcomers or new joiners so that you can observe them before, just in case they turn into zombies. And once you've established some sort of supply run or understand where you can get supplies from, it's also even possible for you to consider farming or growing your own crops within the area. And so I would say that the amusement park would be kind of a good option for you to expand into instead. Next, military bases. Now, I think the military bases would probably be quite similar to the amusement parks, but for different reasons. So of course, firstly, if the base is occupied by the military at that point in time, it's a good thing because you'll be well defended. There are plenty of weapons and resources and food supplies, and so you don't really have to worry about your immediate safety. However, if it's an abandoned military base, then the problems will come. So first, the resources will pretty much be limited. First, military bases will be quite far from most people. You'll be away from the cities, from the towns, and while they are massive, the surrounding area may be entirely barren, like a desert, and the nearest, food or petrol station may be quite far away. However, depending on the use by the military before it was abandoned, it is likely that the military base will have a lot of resources, such as refueling, which means petrol, and then weapons, even food supplies like rations that can last for pretty long. And then it also comes with like clothes, shelter, accommodations for a lot of people, and so it can host a lot of people. You will also have good vantage points for you to take advantage of in terms of defending the base. I mean, pretty much the military base is designed for good defense, right? And so once you take over a proper military base, you are able to take over the defenses quickly, and it can be quite a secure area with enough people. And so that said, you do need to have enough people in order to hold the entire military base. Otherwise, it will be too big of an area for a few people to defend. And most importantly, I think an advantage that the military base actually has is that it would have very good communication systems. Of course, we don't know what the military is actually using, but I'm assuming that most military bases will have like radios or some sort of transmitters or even a LAN fiber optic connection. And this will allow you to communicate with other bases or even the government, which may secure your rescue or I don't know, contribute to the future of rebuilding the human civilization. Next, one of my favorites is actually the industrial building or factories. And I'm going to give it a strong 8 or 9 out of 10. And so, of course, for industrial buildings and factories, there are few different kinds of these buildings out there. And for me, I'm going to just refer primarily to those types of industrial buildings which kind of are like apartment buildings, but it's all for offices or for industrial use. Okay, for factories, I would think that they will be closer to how shopping malls would be, and so I'll be excluding them from this discussion. So first, I think industrial buildings are generally well placed to host a lot of people and for good sustainability, and this is because most industrial buildings would have like restaurants or cafes or even canteens nearby for their workers to go to eat. And so naturally, that's a place where you can obtain some supplies or leftover food. It's also good for defense because generally industrial buildings would be built to be more tough, and you're able to get proper vantage from the higher levels over the area around you. It's also good to host many people like an apartment building, but it's also built for heavy duty use, like having cargo lifts, or some of those forklifts that may help with moving stuff around as well. Industrial buildings would also mean the availability of more equipment. I mean, of course, it's industrial equipment, but who knows, right? Some of this equipment could be helpful to you, either to be used like weapons or to help you build equipment to facilitate survival, or to even make your life better during this crisis. Some industrial buildings may also have access or maybe limited access to the possibility of farming, right, or rearing some crops nearby. And while it does suffer from similar problems that an apartment flat or an office building may have, the way industrial buildings are designed are generally a bit better. There's multiple entrances and exits because, right, for industrial building, they would cater for heavier use. And so there'll be multiple like elevator shafts with multiple elevators around, and also multiple entrances and exits, and also well-placed, emergency exits with emergency stairs like fire escapes. And also the sustainability would generally be quite high in my opinion because there will be other industrial buildings around, and these will have equipment as well, or also other resources like food or supplies left, which you can be using to enhance your defenses. And most importantly, as you continue to expand, of course, the expansion is difficult because you have to expand into an entirely new building. You can't really build on this building. But imagine if you have multiple industrial buildings nearby and they are all cleared out of zombies, you could pretty much build a base, with proper shelter and proper sky bridges for people to get across, and that will be a pretty good stronghold in my opinion. Lastly, for the rural farmhouses or rural camps, I'm going to deal with these two together because I feel like they are pretty similar, and I will give them a strong 6 to 7 out of 10. So first of all, I'll think these are generally rarer because they are kind of far out, and most likely if you live in the city or in the suburbs, you're not going to be getting ready access to getting into rural areas or like the forested areas out of the civilization. However, it is worth considering this as an option because if you are able to get out of civilization, like out of the city or out of the suburbs, out of society's grasp, you are pretty much getting away from the main bulk of the zombies. Next, the resources technically are readily available. Most farms or rural areas have like storages that you can store food, or resources for you to start farming your own crops or rearing your own livestock. Of course, this ultimately depends on luck, as not all of these places are readily available for farming. In terms of defenses, I would say it depends also because while you are able to defend, like for example a farmhouse or a small 3-story building in the middle of nowhere, the problem is that once the zombies start running towards you across the field, it's going to be difficult for you to find any sort of cover or to hide away and misdirect the zombies, right? Because it's an open field, the zombies, once they've seen you, once they track you, they can find you, and it's very hard for you to get out of their line of sight. And this also means that in terms of escaping, it's going to be difficult, and you may have to build like how we see in A Quiet Place, like some sort of an underground chamber or an underground tunnel to get to a further exit access point. Expansion, however, is kind of possible because, well, you have all the space you need, and you have a lot of resources like lumber or trees nearby that you can chop down for building an additional area or additional section or even an additional house for your community. And so in my opinion, this would be a pretty strong choice for you to stay because the amount of zombies that will be nearby will be relatively low. And so you won't really be engaged in a lot of fighting the zombies all the time. And it kind of rates above average for a lot of these other factors as well. And so there you have it. In my opinion, the best kind of shelter or safe houses would be either an industrial building or a rural farmhouse or rural camp. And this is ultimately based on my preference because for me, I would prefer a rural area or like some sort of outskirts in the jungle kind of place because this allows me to get away from all the conflicts, get away from all the problems that the zombies are causing, and even get away from potential aggressors like other humans attacking me to try to steal my supplies. Of course, I'm not saying that you may not face these dangers if you're in the rural area, but definitely being away from civilization, away from the zombie hotspots and the way other survivors are would definitely play a part in it, and it will lower the probability of you being found by them. Then for industrial buildings, I do feel like they are generally well built to be able to hold many people and and to be able to defend against the zombies quite well. You may not necessarily have to clear out, the entire industrial building. You can start by level because each office, the industrial offices generally have like strong bunker doors that would do well to prevent zombies from coming, like those giant steel doors that you have to roll instead of pushing open, right? And it's very difficult for zombies to break through these doors, unlike like glass doors in the office or even like wooden doors that we use for our homes. And so we've come to the end of the video. Do let me know what you think is the best kind of safe house, or what you would prefer as your favorite kind of safe house. I'm always waiting to hear from you guys who watch my content or subscribe to my content to tell me more of what you think, so that I'm able to respond in the subsequent video, or to prepare content that suits what you guys enjoy. So thanks once again for tuning in. Stick around for the next one.